I would
What do you
love to
mean?
see if Grok if Grok predicted this correctly, the Panthers GM has to have a statue outside of his stadium by the
Yeah.
end of the season. A
So,
31-24 final score would be crazy.
I mean, they would have to draft better than the Lions drafted.
dude, yeah, they have to have a roster of MVPs and Rookie of the Years.
Yeah. An undisputed greatest draft of all time to sniff the playoffs, let alone go to the Super Bowl.
For sure.
How about retirements though? Fletcher Cox retiring as well as good
Jason
old
Kelce.
Jason Kelsey. I think the Eagles are over.
Okay.
Booked.
I definitely wouldn't say over. I mean, I think it's a little bit more challenging having the Cowboys. I mean, because there's been trade talks that Derrick Henry's headed there.
I did see
with
that.
who they have still on offense, Dak, CD. I think the Eagles maybe will make a wild card spot, but it won't be. Was But we got somebody else, Saquon, to do the tush push. So Jalen Hurts is going to get an extra 10 yards on that tush push.
I saw.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's gonna
900 pounds. So
I was gonna say he's gonna squat the entire offensive defensive line.
I saw a tweet that came out and said something like, Saquon runs it down to the 10-yard line, and out comes Kenneth Gainwell to punch the ball in the end zone. It's like,
I honestly.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I honestly think that the Saquon signing was perfect for the Eagles. They
definitely.
Obviously losing DeAndre Swift to free agency. I think that was a great replacement for DeAndre Swift, especially with how they run their offense, especially with the tush push and that kind of thing. How heavy of run they are. That was a great signing for them. I don't think there was another running back that was perfect for the Eagles than Saquon.
Well, what I told Chris earlier, though, was I just don't want there to be, as an Eagles fan, I don't want there to be another Bijan Robinson Falcon situation. Like, you got a running back, and like DeAndre Swift was good. He was not terrible by any means. He wasn't the fastest guy in the world, but he could produce. But we just went away from him so many more times than what we needed to, and a lot of times we just needed to develop a stronger run game. And we had arguably a top 5, if not the best offensive line in the league for the last couple years. And it's like, why are we not running? And they are great pass protectors. Clearly see that. But, regardless of whatever the issues were, the locker room, on the field, if it was a Jalen Hurts issue, start running the ball. Get him to throw a lot more screens, get the ground pound going, and let him develop his swagger and that confidence back so that we can see the Eagles do what they had done Super Bowl.
I think that Saquon will be very fun to watch. We just got to hope that he stays off of the injured reserve list there. Where I was going, do you think that the Fletcher Cox decision was kind of in part with the Jason Kelsey decision, or do you think it was just kind of time for them to call it? I mean, they're both phenomenal athletes in their respective positions, but also getting up there in age.
How old is he?
I mean, I don't think it was directly correlated. I think timing happened to, I think it just happened to be that way. But Fletcher Cox, he was in the league 12 years, right? It was 12 years.
Yes.
12
Yeah.
12 seasons. So I mean, he had been in the league for a while. Did we get 33 years old?
33.
Yeah. So I mean, in the NFL, once you get past 30, you're starting to get towards
especially
the downward spiral. Yeah, I was gonna say, especially as a lineman, especially as running back. Running back, offensive, defensive line are the rough positions that they age quicker. And the fact that Jason Kelsey was able to play offensive line till he was 36, and he was able to produce at such a level that he did. is honestly impressive, and I don't think it was correlated, but I do think that those are two retirements that will kind of, I wouldn't say hurt the Eagles, but they'll definitely feel those losses.
I definitely feel like it also wasn't necessarily correlated like directly, but like seeing Jason retire, I feel like Fletcher started to get that thought in his mind where it's like, how long can I actually keep going for this? And then I guess just, conversations with himself and family, probably just like, yeah, I probably should just call it. I don't know if I could do it anymore.
Yeah, obviously, ginormous losses to the team. But I mean, they got guys like Travis or Davis and what's the other guy's name? Trying to think of what's the other D tackle's name?
Oh, Jalen Carter.
Yeah, Jalen Carter. I don't know why I couldn't think of him.
Talking to you.
Those guys
I was trying to
are going to be absolute dogs. So it probably is time to pass the throne down. Dude, there are some huge free agent names this year. Let's start off with Mac Jones to the Jaguars. Sixth round pick for Mac Jones. How are we feeling about that trade for both teams?
I don't know how I feel about it, honestly. Like, I mean, Mac Jones going to sit behind Trevor Lawrence, or did Trevor Lawrence get traded?
No,
No,
he'll
he's
sit behind
definitely
him.
He's gonna sit behind
Trevor
Trevor Lawrence.
But just I don't know. To me, at least, the idea is you want to get somebody who emulates the same type of game as your starting quarterback, so that way your other guys aren't feeling a whole lot of pressure when that star quarterback goes down. And obviously, it's a little tough if you're trying to emulate Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, some of these more generational talents. I think they needed a decently strong backup, but I don't think Mac Jones is your guy. I mean, I think you can save that 6th round pick and, go and pay, the same amount of money, if not less, if you go and pick up, a quarterback in the 6th round of the draft. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, it seems like there was a connection somewhere in the Jaguars front office that Mac Jones was able to go and get another job. And obviously we've seen flashes of Mac Jones, in college that necessarily hasn't been able to translate over into the league. But no, I mean, there's no debut. Like, Trevor Lawrence is still your guy. I think he shined very well this season. I think they finished 9-7, 10-6, close to that 2, 3, 4 wins more. But they're a team that I'm highlighting, at least for next year. I think the Jaguars, as long as they draft I mean, you can even draft okay. You don't even have to draft very well, like the Lions had this past season. But I think the Jaguars can definitely do something, be able to contend at that next level that I know a lot of, Indianapolis Colts fans were hoping for with Richardson when they first got him or whatever. But I think a Mac Jones he's just a filler spot. They needed a 53rd man on the roster. They already had the kicker. They already had the punter, and they were like, let's go get Mac Jones. So
I think it was kind of expected. Obviously, I think the Patriots, it was pretty obvious that they were moving on from Mac Jones. This will obviously, what did they pick 4 in the draft? Pick 5?
3. They're
pick 3. Yeah, this will obviously mean that they're drafting a quarterback. Obviously, that will
JJ
depend
McCarthy.
All right, bro. This will obviously depend on how that draft goes, obviously, but I think a 6th was. I don't want to say. I don't know. I think that was a pretty decent trade. I mean, obviously, Mac Jones continues to have a great career, but obviously has struggled in recent seasons with the Patriots. So I think a backup to supporting cast for Trevor Lawrence may not be a bad place to play ball. And you're in Jacksonville, so
yeah, that's his hometown as well. So he's going back home.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter. But I mean, my thing is, I kind of agree with Evan on this. I think it was a great. I say great trade, but I'm gonna preface this with knowing that he is going to be the backup quarterback. He's not stealing Trevor Lawrence's job. Trevor Lawrence, like you said, Connor, very well earned that job. But do you know who the Jaguars' backup quarterback was last year?
Oh God.
No, that's why I didn't say it.
C.J. Beathard.
Oh yeah, so they needed a
If
new one.
you are
Right.
upgrading hardcore from C.J.
Yeah.
Beathard, and we saw the injury struggles with Lawrence with the ankle injury towards the end of the year.
Sure.
You never know with the style of play that Trevor Lawrence likes to do. He's kind of that improviser. He likes to roll out and try to, make plays with his feet, kind of try to roll out and do these kind of special kind of Mahomesy throws.
Right.
The Mahomes.
He,
That looks a little Mahomey.
yeah, does look a little Mahomey. But the kind of style that he plays can get him hurt. And I think you need at least a capable quarterback to play behind him. And not to say that CJ Beathard's terrible. He's a great third string quarterback.
Wow.
But I would not if I was a Jaguars fan or if I was the Jaguars coaching staff, I would feel a lot more comfortable having Mac Jones as my backup quarterback rather than having a CJ Beathard. And you can think of it with Jacksonville as, you're trying to revitalize Mac Jones' career. Maybe this is just a stopping point where he can kind of learn from Doug Peterson and learn from, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Doug Peterson coached Carson Wentz, Nick Foles. He can make a quarterback into something. Right. So, I mean, I think this is a perfect spot for Mac Jones if he wants to revitalize his career. And obviously, as soon as he hits the free agent market, he won't get a big deal, massive deal, but he'll get a deal where it's like, hey, it's kind of a prove it deal with a quarterback desperate team.
Sure.
I mean, we saw how that worked for Kirk Cousins. Obviously, signing a 4-year, $180 million deal with Atlanta.
Pocket change.
Dude, I think that they could be good. Obviously, I mean, 36 years old, giving a $180 million contract to for 4 years is, especially coming off an Achilles tear, interesting to say the least. But I hope the Falcons. I mean, they got the roster to be good. So
for sure,
that's the quarterback market for you, though.
Yeah, Chris Jones, the CEO, is staying in Kansas City. I think that was a phenomenal signing for Kansas City. I don't think that I would have seen Chris Jones going anywhere else. Obviously, you saw the whole contract negotiations weighing a bit heavy on the team last year with the holdout and stuff. But I honestly love that trade for both sides. I think Chris Jones, one of the best D tackles in football, will probably continue to be for the next couple of years, and staying in KC right where he belongs will do nothing but help the team. Maybe make another playoff run next year.
No, definitely. I mean, I think the franchise tag with Ladarius Sneed, I think they're doubling down on the defense that you saw in the Super Bowl, and I think that's exactly what they're doing. That they are, doing what they can to strengthen that defense in the free agency, and they'll probably pick up, a couple picks, maybe a DB, more often than not, maybe an outside linebacker and or an edge rusher. But they will definitely be, and I'm sure everybody knows it, they will be going for a couple receivers, no doubt. I mean, I know. I'm sure, you've probably already seen, Xavier Worthy and Patrick Mahomes communicating, texting a little bit, especially after his stellar 40 time. But I think the front office sees what they have in that defense, and Chris Jones is, one of those leaders that they wanted to keep, very handsomely for the next couple of years. So,
I mean, I love the signing of Chris Jones. I think that's a huge player to get locked down. And I mean, like you said, they're heavily focusing on defense. I wouldn't be shocked though to see them trade L'Jarius Sneed though.
They franchise tagged him.
I mean, it happens a lot. You've seen there's a lot of teams that'll franchise tag somebody and then explore trading them because they don't think they can lock them down. Money wise, it's going to be hard for them to be able to lock L'Jarius Sneed down. And I think on a franchise tag, if you send them to a team, like maybe if Detroit gets involved, if some other team gets involved in that talks, they'll be willing to pay a pretty penny to get him acquired and then be able to try to lock him down because they'll have the salary cap to be able to do it. Right. Like T. Higgins or like I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit, requested a trade out after his franchise tag. A lot of players will request a trade out, or the front office will at least explore trading him. Now, do I think that they fully will? Probably not. I think they more care about trying to go for that three-peat than actually getting like value back for L'Jarius Sneed. I think if he walks, he walks. I think they can still franchise tag him a second time, but I'm not quite sure on the rules on franchise tagging. I'm pretty sure they can do it twice, but my thing is, I mean, overall, like you said, they get some receivers. I mean, we're looking at a potential three-peat.
Speaking of some receivers, I know you just said T. Higgins. It was rumored a while ago that Jay Jettis himself was seeing how the quarterback room was going to pan out in the Vikings. You think there's any potential we see T. Higgins or Justin Jefferson to the Chiefs?
I think
No?
we see JJ cubed, JJ McCarthy to Jay Jettis.
Oh my
Okay,
god,
bro.
that
Couldn't agree
was
more.
terrible.
Oh my
That was
gosh.
terrible joke.
No, the Chiefs don't have the cap. I mean, those guys are guys that are wanting, bigger deals, and sure, some of them might take some sort of a decrease just to get, a ring or two, but no, they're looking at, developing guys. They got Rashid Rice, who has performed pretty well in the last year, and they are just expecting to keep, one or two veterans and just get some guys in the draft that they are projecting to do well and develop well over the next couple of years. Because I mean, you saw it this past season. Patrick Mahomes still did things that is crazy, and he had the most drops by any team. By 20 or 30.
I
targets.
would
It's
be
like,
really interested to see what their cap space looks like if they can get Mahomes to restructure his contract
Yeah.
again. I don't know. I mean, I think that is a long shot for sure because he probably would have to take a pay cut, even though he's one of the best receivers in the league. But I think that'd be fun to watch. Could you imagine Mahomes to Jay Jettis for the next couple of years? That'd be fun.
It'd be horrible.
Highly doubt it happens. Though.
Speaking of
Highly doubt
quarterbacks,
that happens.
Russell Wilson to the Steelers. What was it? I think it was 1.2 or was it
1.21? It was vet minimum.
1.21. Yeah. Yeah, because the Broncos owe him $38.5 million this year. I mean,
Oh my.
that may go
hey.
down as one of the worst trades in NFL history.
Mhm.
Broncos country, let's die. It is over. It's time
Yeah.
to move on.
I mean,
How do we
yeah,
feel about
that-
Russell Wilson to the Chiefs or to the Chiefs to the Steelers?
I mean, to the Chiefs, no.
I love it.
I mean, to this, I think this is an interesting signing for the Steelers. Like I agree, they needed a quarterback. I mean, your picks were between Pickett and Rudolph,
Yeah.
and you also have Russ, who Russ, if you really look at it, didn't play terribly. Did he play good? Absolutely not. But I mean, I think under Mike Tomlin, with some of the weapons that he's got, I think he can make something work. I think they're an over 500 team. I don't know if they win any playoff games. I don't know if they make the playoffs. I think
Of
they
course
go
they do.
I think they do.
I don't
The
know with
classic
the
Mike
Browns in there
Tomlin.
now.
With the classic Mike Tomlin, I think they'll end up going like 9-8. But I mean, it's a good signing. They needed a quarterback. If I were the Steelers, I probably would have kicked the tires a little more on Justin Fields before jumping onto the Russ bandwagon, because I think Justin Fields would have been a better option. But I can also see them taking Russ and keeping Pickett as the backup and kind of hoping that Russ can kind of teach Pickett, NFL football.
Yeah, that's where I was
And
going to
then
go.
hope that after he leaves after this year, that Pickett can kind of take back over and hope that he kind of gets revitalized. in
That's
that
where I
kind
was
of
going to
sense.
go. Do we think that means that Pickett's the long-term option and this was a move to help
Mhm,
facilitate and teach Pickett?
mhm.
I honestly love it. Obviously,
I like that idea.
I think the Broncos, that, like I said earlier, might go down as one of the worst trades of all time, and contracts that is just hideous from any way you look at it. But
Yeah.
I
I
think
mean,
it's it's great for both Russ to get another shot. Obviously, you got some young receiver like Pickens out there, but the Steelers, I mean, getting a quarterback for dirt cheap. Obviously, Russ, depending on who you talk to, may be a bit out of his prime, but Russ, one of the better quarterbacks in the league we've had for the last 10 years. So,
I mean, last season he had 26 touchdowns and only 8 interceptions for over 3,000 yards. I mean, that's not a bad season.
yeah,
No,
I think in his situation, it was very, very good. I think obviously not one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but for the situation he had and was in, I think that was pretty good.
I think he got cut. This is my little tinfoil conspiracy theory here.
Boy.
I think he got cut because, I mean, I don't even think this is a conspiracy theory. I think it's pretty easy writing on the wall. I think Sean Payton didn't want him as a quarterback anymore. I think he wanted to get his own guy in here. And I think that guy, as much as Chris absolutely loves him, is probably going to be JJ McCarthy.
That is an insane.
I could completely see them take. Think about it.
No.
Sean
I was
Payton.
saying that is an insane thing to do for a quarterback you don't want. Taking 40 or 86 million dead cap space. That's insane.
The fact that if this is true, if what I'm saying is absolutely true, which I don't know, if that's absolutely true, then how Sean Payton did voodoo magic to convince the front office to do
generational talent of head coach.
But like my thing is that JJ McCarthy. That's the most Sean Payton quarterback that you could find in this draft. I mean, Sean Payton looks at JJ McCarthy and just goes, Drew Brees. This is Drew Brees. I can make him Drew Brees.
I could see it.
Yeah, if it's always every new head coach wants to get their own quarterback in. Sean Payton did not want Russ. That was the other guy's guy.
Dude,
why would you want
if
him?
he goes 12th overall in the first round, they don't have a second round pick. It's the first and the third. If he goes,
I could easily
overall,
see them taking him 12.
Oh my gosh!
That or trading back to
4.
15.
Oh my gosh!
He's not going to the Cardinals, Chris.
Okay, fifth, my bad.
There you go. That's better.
Speaking of the Broncos trading Judy for 5th and 6th round picks. Is that? I think Jerry Jeudy is obviously not one of the best receivers in the league, but I think he's pretty underrated. I mean, you think that's enough for Jerry Jeudy? Did they get fleeced? And what are our thoughts here?
I feel like you could have gotten more picks.
See, I think that was probably around what you were going to get for him.
I could see like maybe one more pick, like another 5th. Like the following year, but it's not terrible. I like Jerry Jeudy, of course.
Yeah,
I mean, I think guy over here.
I mean, I think Jerry Jeudy's a solid number 2 receiver, like solid 2-3 receiver. That he's perfect in your slot. Pause.
Wow.
He's a perfect slot receiver. I mean, I think. Did he kind of have a bad situation in Denver with the quarterback carousel that he had over there? Yeah. Do I think it's going to be much better with Cleveland where they have Deshaun Watson that they don't? I mean, it's a question mark if he even plays every week. I don't know. But I think Deshaun Watson, if he's healthy and he's playing, I think he can help Jerry Jeudy a little bit. But I mean, I think it's a fine trade. I think Brown's got a good player there.
Speaking of that Browns offense, I mean, you got to say that they might be top 3 and not 3 or 2 in offense next year. I mean, you got Deshaun Watson, Jerome Ford, Nick Chubb. Hopefully he stays healthy. Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, and David Njoku. I mean, that is a roster.
Yeah.
We saw what the Browns could do this year with Joe Flacco when Joe Flacco obviously had an amazing
and without Nick Chubb.
And obviously, without Nick Chubb too. Obviously, we saw what Joe Flacco could do. Had a wonderful year. Deshaun comes back. Hopefully, Nick Chubb comes back and stays healthy. I mean, I feel like the Browns might have a serious playoff contention run. I mean, this might be the Browns' year.
The Browns.
Go ahead, Connor. I want to hear your opinion on this, Connor.
I agree. I think to an extent that they have the division. I don't think I mean, look at the Steelers, look at the Bengals. They have teams in their division that are working through the process of becoming that team in the division. And with having one of the strongest defenses already in the league, um, building your offense the way they have, again, Jaron said it. If Deshaun stays healthy, if Chubb stays healthy, without a doubt, they have the best team. I think where the biggest question mark is how well do they play together? I think not having Deshaun Watson, play for a full season, having had a player like Joe Flacco, where yes, they both can throw the ball, but they're completely different. Joe Flacco's up in his 40s. The guy's not as mobile as he once was, if you say he was. Deshaun Watson is the exact opposite. He's more of a Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. It's like the guy can throw the ball, but like you got to be able to respect him on the ground. I think if they have a very strong offseason together and they come in with the idea that we are just going to put the ball in our players' hands who we know can make plays, produce, and rinse and repeat. Don't do anything that you can't do, that don't do something that is out of your, theme or ideology of the Browns. Do what has worked for the Browns, especially last year. Throw a better quarterback in, throw a running back that can pound the ball. Then I can definitely see them being a strong contention and go very far in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that are they okay, are we saying best offense on paper, or are we saying when week 18 ends, they're going to have the best statistical offense?
I
What
think
is
it's
top
parameter
10.
choose?
I don't think they're the
I think it's top 3 on paper.
Top 3 on paper.
Top 5 at least.
Top 5, yeah. I don't know. You got offenses like I think the Eagles offense, looking at that right now,
Yeah.
with the signings that they made, they're definitely one of the best offenses. I think that depending on the running back room in Baltimore, I think they could be a top offense in the league. I think I think the Lions, depending on what they do, I think they can have a best offense in the league. I definitely think they will be a top 10 offense statistically. I mean, like we brought up, if Deshaun Watson's healthy, I mean, we saw what he could do with the Texans when he's healthy and all that. Forget about the off-field stuff, but I think he's a good quarterback. It took him a little bit to settle in Cleveland, especially after, finally getting back on the field. What was it, 2 years ago, mid-season? In this past year, he kind of couldn't get things going because he just kept getting hurt. I think if he has a fully healthy season, that he can definitely go. I wouldn't say he'd be MVP numbers, but he could go back to being like the old Deshaun Watson. And I mean, a running back room, if Nick Chubb comes back fully healthy, I know with what he did, it's going to take a little bit. He should.
Nick Chubb's fun to watch.
Thinking about timeline on that, he should be back by beginning of the season. I don't know about week 1, but beginning of the season. Like Evan just said, he's fun to watch. That running back room will be great, and then the receiving core with Njoku, Cooper, Judy, and Moore. Like, you got pass catchers everywhere. I think, and their offensive line's great. I love watching their offensive line. I think that they could be a very dangerous offense, and it's all about how they get through their division, how they get through the AFC. Because the AFC, like we've seen it, it's one of the hardest conferences to advance in the playoffs. Do they have a good enough offense to put them past the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bengals, the Dolphins?
We saw last year the Browns, at least towards the end of the season, had the best statistical defense in the league. I mean, their defense was absolutely elite last year. So I think, adding more weapons on offense I think they're a good sleeper team for next year. Speaking of, I was gonna say the AFC, but they're not in the AFC. The Bucks signing Baker Mayfield, 3 years, $100 million. How I'm gonna be honest, bro. I feel like that's underpaid for that performance. That might be a hot take. I think Baker's a really good quarterback. I think that's cheap. I think the only thing that you're missing out on is some more wide receiver talent. Obviously, Mike Evans is a bit older and also could go anywhere. But if you lose him, you're kind of SOL. But I think Baker Mayfield, I think that's a good contract for the Bucks.
I mean, yeah. Before I go into Baker Mayfield, I just want to bring up. I looked up the Super Bowl odds on FanDuel. Cleveland Browns plus 4,000. They are the 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16th best odds to win the Super Bowl. So, if you want to place your bets, go crazy. As for
Already
Baker,
have.
oh yeah. Hey, I'm in Illinois. I could do it. As for Baker, it's the quarterback market's so weird, man. Like, don't get me wrong, Baker Mayfield played phenomenal for, this was kind of his rejuvenation, I would say. Like, he was kind of doubted when he was in towards the end of his time in Cleveland, goes to Panthers, didn't get much. I mean, he got a chance, obviously, but he was in Carolina.
That's a good game.
Goes to LA, plays great. Gets that contract, that prove it deal with the Bucks, and last year 4,044 yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. That's a great season, man. Do I think he should have gotten $33 million per year? Questionable. I think with the current quarterback market, that's a great deal on him. Because, if you take him for another year at if you go 1 year at 30 mil and say, hey, prove it to me again, and then he goes off and does better, well, now you're paying 50, 60 for him. Because that's kind of where we're at in the NFL right now. Like, Tua, when he wants a contract extension, he's going to want 60 million. T-Law, when he gets a contract extension, he's going to want 60 million. It doesn't matter, actual success. They're just going to look at the stats and go, Patrick Mahomes gets this much money. Deshaun Watson makes this much money. Russ made that much money. Now he's dead cap. Burrow made that much money. I'm on their level. I want that money. So, I mean, for the amount of money and the stats that he put up, if he could continue his success in Tampa, that's a great signing for him. This just shows how crazy the quarterback market is, where, like we brought up earlier, Kirk making 180 million. Like, that's insane at 36 years old.
Off an Achilles tear, yeah. Yeah,
off an Achilles tear as well. But, overall, I think it's a good deal for them.
I know you mentioned Justin Fields. I know we've had plenty of discussions over the weeks. What happens with Justin Fields? I would personally love to see him stay in Chicago, get Marvin Harrison number 1, build some weapons around him. But where do you see Justin Fields going if you see him leaving?
Go ahead, boys. I want to hear.
Chris.
I don't even know. I don't even know
Houston,
where I
CJ
see. I
Stroud's
think
not
he
worth it.
stays.
Wow.
Oh, God.
I think he stays. I don't know. I don't know where he, like, any other place that he would go. I want him in Chicago too. Not that I'm a Bears fan or anything. I just feel like it's the smart play, especially picking up DeAndre Swift today.
Yeah.
I feel like having
Build
DeAndre
out that
Swift
wide
can
receiver room
alleviate
a little more, and
and
Yeah.
DeAndre Swift can alleviate some of that, having to throw the ball all the time. Yeah.
Connor, what do you think?
Personally, if the Raiders can't get a deal done, and I think the Raiders are going to go in the draft, I actually think they're going to do a similar thing like the Steelers are. I think they're going to try and keep Fields, see if they can try and put, as much of a minimum on there as possible without Justin Fields being like, yeah, that's not, and get another quarterback. I mean, I think we've seen it countless times before. I think the fans want Fields. I think the players want Fields. I just don't think the coaching staff in the front office want him. I think they want to go a different route. I think just who they've had contact with so far in the free agency, I think they're just not liking what they're receiving. So I think, it is coming down to the point where you're going to have to make a decision. And if they haven't made a decision now, I can't imagine that you're going to get you're going to get your highest deal now. You know what I'm saying? So I think they're going to.
I think it would be an utter flop for it would be on par for the Chicago Bears franchise,
sure.
but
Mm-hmm.
I think walking away from Justin Fields and not building weapons around him, I'm not saying that Justin Fields is the best quarterback in the league, but I think that he has not had the capabilities to show his true potential in Chicago.
Or even opportunity.
Opportunity. I'm sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. I think walking away from him is going to be an utter disaster, but again, that would be on par for the Chicago Bears.
I mean, for me, what I want to happen versus what I think is going to happen are two different things. What I want to happen is, like you guys said, I think Justin Fields is if he's not already, he's going to be a good quarterback. I mean, do I think he's going to be an elite level quarterback, franchise chasing quarterback? I personally don't think so. But I mean, I think he's a great quarterback that you can if you can get the right weapons around him, he will be more than serviceable.
I think, not to interrupt you here, I think franchise quarterback, good. Franchise changing quarterback, I got to see a little bit more of Justin Fields. I got to see some success before I can say that. But I truly believe Justin Fields could be a franchise quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that either. But what I think is going to end up happening is that, they played with fire last year by trading away the first overall pick when they had it to Carolina to get the pick that they now have at first overall. They already played with fire once. They're not going to do it again. They're going to try to, they got rid of the first overall pick and passed up on Bryce Young because they wanted to give Justin Fields another chance. They gave him the chance. They got DJ Moore. And it took a while for him and DJ Moore to click, and it finally started clicking towards the end. But, I mean, at that point, if you're the front office of the Bears, do you say that's too little too late? Me personally, I think that they kind of already made their decision that it's probably just better for them to restart the clock on the contract. That's the only reason why I think they actually do it. They get rid of him is because you can restart the clock for them to be able to have time to get the weapons around Caleb Williams. And you're taking a gamble on a guy that has never played an NFL snap compared to the guy that you've seen for the past few years. But I think that if Fields gets traded, my guess would be the Raiders. I mean, I've seen that they're picking up steam on kind of kicking the tires on Fields, but it's tough, man. That situation for the Bears is tough. That front office is probably gaining gray hairs by the hour on the stress for just making this decision because they know if they decide to,
either way they go, it might absolutely
either way
them. It
they
might burn
can
the franchise down.
And they already made that gamble once. Are they gonna make it again and get rid of the first overall pick and just hope that Caleb Williams has a Bryce Young type year? Or do they just take Caleb Williams and go, okay, well, if Justin Fields is gonna be good somewhere, please let it be away from. Please let it just not even be near the NFC, please.
Right. Chris, your thoughts?
What about Fields to the Titans?
I think they're pretty set on Will Levis being their quarterback.
I think so too. I think the mayonnaise Messiah is their guy.
Yeah.
You think so?
I think Will Levis is going to be good.
I don't know how I felt about him. I didn't watch him that much.
I think he at least deserves the runway. At least a year to just see him in a full year.
Yeah.
And losing Derrick Henry though. That's going to be rough. Speaking of running backs, obviously lots of running backs here and there today in the NFL. Saquon to the Eagles. Derrick Henry still a possible free agent. I've heard the Raiders or the Cowboys linked to Derrick Henry. Austin Eckler to the Commanders. I mean, do you see a team going all out for a running back here in the first round? Obviously, the Texans haven't locked down a running back. They just lost Singletary. Obviously, the Chargers lost their quarterback. I mean, do you see like maybe a Blake Corum reunion? Maybe.
I could see a Blake Corum reunion on the earliest pick in the second. I think you got receivers, especially for the Chargers.
Maybe a tight end first.
Yeah, you got receivers or tight ends. I think their defense very good. I know. I pretty sure I heard they were somewhat exploring options. Bosa. If
Mm,
that's the case, you got to pick up a defender. Whether it's a corner or somebody on the front seven in your first round. But second round, I do not see Blake Corum staying for that long in the second round, especially if you're a team looking for a very strong running back that right out of the gate he can get to running. You mentioned the Texans. The Cowboys, if they don't go the Derrick Henry route, but you also still have look at Aaron Jones. He's now up there, up for grabs. Derrick Henry still up for grabs, but you still got guys like Trey Benson out there that can run a 4.3. You saw it at Florida State, especially this year. He can fly. I don't know that he's as good as Blake Corum from what we've seen combine, but I think in game he's right on up there. To me, I think Chargers go Blake Corum. I think that relationship with Harbaugh is great. I think you maybe pick up a smaller free agent running back, just have a decent backup to what Blake Corum plays like. I think Harbaugh knows him best. I gotta imagine he's gonna try and go after some guys, Michigan, that he knew could play well and can transition well. Because I think they said the best. Somebody had said it, and I can't remember who. They said that the most developed guys, at least for the offensive line, was Michigan. I gotta imagine that also transfers over to a lot of other guys' team too. So
yeah, I mean, I think Corum would be a great fit in Chargers with Chargers organization. Obviously, like you said, the familiarity with Harbaugh. I think he would benefit greatly from being in that system. One team that like Evan brought up that doesn't have a running back right now. I mean, I could see the Texans taking a stab. Hopefully, you kind of got to hope that he drops a little bit because I mean, I not for sure if they have a second round pick. If they do, it's going to be a late second. But I mean,
yeah, because their first one's 24th. So
yeah, because the Cardinals have their first round pick. So and then they have their first round pick, but they got the first round pick from I think Cleveland, right? Somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland?
23rd pick.
Yeah, so 23rd pick. I don't think
Cleveland.
they take Corum with 23rd.
We have the 59th pick too.
59th.
second.
So
Yep.
yeah. So I mean, I think that would, if he somehow drops to 59, he would be a great fit in Houston. Having him and CJ Stroud, with Tank Dell, Nico Collins,
That would be a
That would be
very young
disgusting.
team.
young and talented
Promising.
Mhm.
Yes.
offense
Yeah.
that you can build around right there. You just you shore up a little bit on the offensive line. You obviously still have Laramie Tunsil. I'm pretty sure he's still under contract for another year, maybe year or two. Maybe?
can't say
I don't
off
know.
the top of my head.
I was gonna say I don't know it off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure he's locked down for at least 1 or 2 more years minimum. I mean, you go and get some offensive line help, and go and get Blake Corum in the draft. Maybe you take an offensive lineman with the 23rd pick,
Joe Wall.
and
He doesn't
he
fall
ain't
that
dropping
far,
to
I wish.
23, buddy. I mean, I think there's some good interior offensive linemen on that the late first round that they could definitely benefit from taking.
Yeah. Now, kind of speaking on college football, the former Notre Dame quarterback landing at Mizzou. How do we feel about that? Isn't Brady Cook staying at Mizzou another year?
Yeah.
Just adding another weapon to the room, I guess. He'll be a backup, and if Cook leaves or gets hurt, I guess.
I
What are our
mean,
thoughts on that?
I don't know. I've never even heard of this guy. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
I mean, having been injured at ASU, that was his past season in 2023. I think his idea is he wants to go and make a name for himself, and I can totally see Drew Payne going in there and challenge Cook without a doubt. I mean, I know what we saw what Cook can do. I know Schrader did a lot for that offense, and I'm I don't know who's behind him, but I do know that they are leaning towards allowing Cook to blossom a little bit more in that offense, being able to throw the ball a lot, being able to take leadership and ownership of that crew. But, Drew Payne, having learned from a lot of great guys before him, I believe, what's his name? Jaden Daniels came from ASU before he went to LSU. Obviously they got a lot of good quarterback coaches at Notre Dame. We saw that this year for sure. ASU has been known to get their quarterbacks as well. So I definitely can see him going
I,
in and trying to win that spot.
I could also see him being just an overall good backup just because Sam Horn's going to be out.
Sure.
Because he had the Tommy John surgery?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, did he get him? So you said Drew Payne got injured last year, right?
Didn't
Yeah.
Yeah. So he played 2 games. Did he catch a medical red shirt for that? I would assume. If he did, it says on ESPN that he's listed as a sophomore, but I don't know if that was this past season, so that would make him a junior technically. So he'd be 5th year as a junior. I mean, that's a good experience guy. I mean, I even if he doesn't beat out Brady Cook, I think ultimately the decision for who's going to play at quarterback is who's going to benefit Luther Burden, because Luther Burden is your
And
weapon
Theo.
now,
without
and Theo Weiss. Like those two are your
Future.
yeah, those are your guys next year. You had Cody Schrader this year, that's why you were very run heavy. You were able to take a little bit of the load off of Brady Cook. Not saying that Brady Cook didn't play great. He played great. He had his moments where it was, that it was like, ooh, that doesn't look too good. But then he had his moments that it was like, this is a future star quarterback here at Mizzou, like a Drew Lock, Chase Daniel kind of guy. But I think that the decisions ultimately could come down to who can help those weapons the most. And I mean, from his stats back in 2022 with 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions on 2,021 yards, that's not bad numbers at all. And I could see him, after maybe if Brady Cook ends up declaring for the draft, maybe he takes as a redshirt senior, he takes a job and goes for a year kind of as like a little stopgap. And, obviously with a Tommy John surgery for Sam Horn, he's going to be out all of next year.
Mm-hmm.
So he won't be back until Brady Cook is probably gone for the draft anyway. So then it'll just be between him and Payne, and then whoever beats out
I
who.
think Mizzou should run a 2 QB offense.
I think
Honestly, the Bears should do that. They should take Caleb
Williams and Justin
and
Fields.
that'd be
Make Justin
wild.
Fields a running back. They have a running back. Boom.
Do some read options like Washington State.
They don't
There you
need
go.
DeAndre
Read
Swift.
option.
Why did they sign him?
There you go.
I think with Mizzou and Brady Cook, if Brady Cook can have the same amount of like progress from this current year to next year as he did from 2022 to 2023, that it won't be like even a conversation to be had that Brady Cook will be the quarterback for Mizzou. I just think, let's see, 2022, he played with like a torn labrum. I think this year he had some sort of knee injury that he nursed the entire time. Like, I feel if Brady Cook is healthy and can continue to improve, that Mizzou could be a top 10 team, top 5 team.
I think they're going to be fun to watch, especially with the playoffs expanding. Obviously, the what is it, a 12-team playoff that they're looking at expanding to?
Mhm.
Rumored to be
Already
14.
trying to go 14.
Yeah. I think that's going to be fun for college football. What are your guys' opinions on automatic? What is the word I'm looking for? Buy-ins, bids. That's what I'm looking for. I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like the SEC or the Big 10 or the Big 12 getting automatic. Obviously, you want your champion to get an automatic bid. That's great, but having like 2 or 3 automatic bids for one conference just feels like a lot for me. Just feels like it doesn't showcase the entire, ideology of college football that, like, you know, you're giving this chance. That was the whole reason they expanded the playoffs, was to give teams like Florida State, who played, less demanding football than SEC, a chance in the playoffs. Now, I feel like having those bids just makes that the same way, just in a different format. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll say this.
Yeah.
I think they are going toward business like the NFL is. I think they know, whether it's through TV deals or just the NCAA alone, they know which schools get them the most money, and they know which schools get them the most views to go down to win, obviously, the end goal of an. And I think that is their goal, without a doubt, to have those automatic bids. I mean, you see, let's say Notre Dame is second, they don't play a championship, but you got, ninth Oklahoma getting a bid for a bye. It's like Notre Dame, assumingly, is a clearly better team, but just because they're in a strong conference, they get a bid. To me, I think it's just whoever brings in the most money, and they know it's two conference, SEC.
So that's why the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Wait a minute, hold on.
I mean, I think the original format that got shot down was that they wanted originally 4 SEC and Big Ten bids.
It just
and
feels like a lot for me.
And then it was going to be 1 for the Big 12 and the ACC. I agree. I think obviously strength of schedule with the conferences. Obviously, yes, your 2 best football conferences right now are the SEC and the Big Ten.
Clearly.
So, will it end up working out that, most of the top 14 are... Do I think 6 of the top 14 best teams in college football are going to be 3 SEC and 3 Big Ten?
Yes.
Probably.
Yeah.
What I don't like is that the whole reason, like you had kind of brought up before, like the whole reason for them expanding the playoff to 12 was to get more teams involved, because it was always every year there was like 2 teams
The
that would get
Bama versus the Georgia.
it was like teams would get snubbed out of the playoff. Well, that kind of gets rid of it, because they obviously have more automatic bids. They call them what do they call them? They're not automatic bids, but they're you didn't win your conference and you're just ranked the highest. I can't think of the word I'm calling. I can't think of it, but pretty much you're getting less of those teams. It's more of just like, it's more dependent on conference schedule than like conference standings than it is actual overall standings. So it's just, I can look at the SEC schedule or standings, and I can just go, these 3 teams are going in. Big Ten, these 3 teams are going in. And the only teams that I actually have to look to see who's going to make it in are those 3 outside teams that aren't the top 3 or top 2 in their conference, and aren't the champion of one of the group of 5 conferences. Like, I think it just closes everything off.
Yeah, I think it should kind of go towards like the college basketball. Obviously, March Madness is one of the greatest times of the year, but there's always that Cinderella story. Obviously, it is a bit harder to do in football. You're not going to get like a JMU that walks in and smokes Alabama like you maybe would see in a basketball scenario. I just would like to introduce teams that, don't have that playoff experience and don't have that roster. Now they have the ability to make the playoffs because they're, undefeated, or because their schedule is not as tough, does not mean that they should not be in the playoffs. I just think that would be great for the sport to see. Who wouldn't want to see a team like an Appalachian State or somebody make the playoffs and spice up the playoffs? We're tired of seeing Bam every year, or tired of seeing Georgia every year, except Chris. Obviously, Chris is not tired of that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just would like to see. I don't think that automatic bids would be the best thing for the sport, but that's just my opinion.
I think one I get.
I could see, yeah.
But I think it needs to come down to 2 things. You can't just put the 14 ranked teams in there.
Like Jaron said,
have
though.
a team like UCF who was 13-0, but like, did you really play anybody strong?
Like Jaron
Yeah.
said though, is it very likely that the Big Ten and the SEC are going to run the top 15? Absolutely, but I don't think they should be automatic bids. I just don't.
Yeah.
No,
I
I mean, my thing is that especially with like the SEC and the Big Ten, obviously with the ACC and the Big 12 too, kind of like it doesn't make the conference championship games that important anymore.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
you get, ACC, it'll be between Florida State and Clemson. Well, it doesn't matter who wins the game. I mean, I guess it matters for who's getting the bye, but really you're ultimately screwing over the team that loses, because the team that loses they have to play that extra game and they don't get the bye. Like for the SEC and the Big Ten, I would almost rather be the third place team in the SEC or the Big Ten, because one, yeah, I'm not going to win that conference title, but I also won't have to play that extra game.
Right.
If you go to the conference title, let's say you're SEC, let's say you're Bama and you're having to play Georgia, and let's say you lose to Georgia. Well, now you're the second place team in the SEC. You just played an extra game from everyone else. Now you don't get a first round bye and you have to play again.
Well, who's to say you just don't throw in your second or third strings in that game? Like you said,
That's
knowing
another
that you're
thing.
gonna make it to the playoffs anyway.
Yeah.
That's another thing, because it gives players more of an opportunity to opt out of, like,
Which I hate.
instead of
I
opting
think,
out of the bowl game, they're opting out
Yeah.
of the conference championship to get ready for the bowl game.
I think we
Like-
have to start putting a bigger emphasis. This is really off topic. I think we have to start putting a bigger emphasis on bowl games. I think those are fun. That's what separates, college football from,
Any other
They're
any other
dead,
sport.
man.
And yeah, it's just it's
They're
an
dead.
opt out. It's the
Ev-
fourth string guy
if
going
you're
against
not
the
the
fourth string
college
guy.
football
and-
playoff, you're gone.
Yeah. I wish
mean,
that things were
the
different.
Pop
but
Tart guy revived it. And
Hell
we
yeah.
got it for a year. We did
Hell
Put
yeah.
him on the cover.
Yeah,
Man.
please.
Oh, that's
Please.
amazing. Last thing to end the day. Did Nick Saban have I'm going to read a quote here, but I want to see if Nick Saban had a point about players playing differently now. Obviously, we've talked about in the last couple weeks, money kind of becoming a thing in college football. He said, and I quote, "I thought we had a hell of a team, or I thought we could have had a hell of a team next year, and then maybe 70 or 80% of the players you talk to, all they want to know is two things. What assurances do I have that I'm going to play? Because they're thinking about transferring, and how much are you going to pay me?" Saban said that to ESPN. I mean, I feel like he retired because he knew the game was going outside of the game.
Mhm.
It was going to be the NFL just in college instead. I mean, players are literally leaving school for more money, not because they have a better chance at winning or because they want to make a legacy. It's all about getting money, and I think that is horrible for the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Jaron about this earlier. I think getting away from Nick Saban and just talking about the NIL deals, I think it's great coming from a former college athlete. We have several in here that
Not me.
all that time,
I was a
all
college
that time
esports
that is
athlete.
spent,
There you go.
I mean, it is a full-time job in college, and you're not getting paid. Whether it's at D1 or down to D3, you may not be, as good of a team at D3, but it is still a full-time job. So being able to get paid for it, absolutely, without a doubt, I can agree. What makes it worse, though, is to me, my opinion is I don't think you're going to see those teams like we had growing up. There was in the early 2000s of just pure dominance. Like you used to want to come out of high school and go to USC, Alabama, Oregon, Georgia, and maybe a handful of others. Those are the teams you wanted to go to, and it didn't matter who else. Like you wanted to be at the best of the best, play with the best of the best, to go on and fulfill your dreams in playing professional. Now, whether you have $218 million to spend or you got $2 million, you're not going to be able to keep all these 10, 15, 25-star guys on your team because you can't pay all, whether you're Alabama or not. So all that good talent is just going to be dispersed onto all these different teams, which I think it's great. You're going to have a lot of more 5-star guys, lower SEC schools like Arkansas, lower Big Ten schools. We may see a couple Wisconsin, State. Like you will see a more diverse range of things. But I think, again, it is breaking away the fact you are not going to college to win a game, earn something to go into the business like the NFL is. You go to college, you've already, a lot of these guys are making $5 million. And with $5 million, I'm not saying guys want to go work a 9 to 5, but you can move your money around, get guys who know how to do that, and then you can live comfortably for the rest.
I think it's great because, like you said, the great teams get, I don't want to say worse, they get more even. The problem with it is the bad teams get worse. There is zero chance a team like UCF, a team like Bowling Green can offer anywhere near the
Toledo.
amount of money
Yeah.
a team like Alabama or Georgia can offer. And it just sucks.
And I mean, and my thing on it is that, like, he was saying, like when he said there's only two things they're thinking about, playing time if they want to transfer or how much they're going to pay me. I think a lot of when we were growing up, I obviously kind of brought up, people wanted to go to the USCs, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Georgias. They wanted to go to those teams because they wanted to be there. They wanted to win. I think that adding the transfer portal, while it was it's fundamentally a great thing, being able to transfer, because I remember back in the day, if somebody wanted to transfer, they had to sit a year, they'd lose a year of eligibility. They almost got punished for wanting to transfer. But it didn't matter the reason. Like, one that I can think of is that I think his name was Luke Ford, the guy who transferred to Illinois because his grandfather was dying, and he wanted to be closer to home to so that they could watch him play. So he filed a waiver, and then he got denied. He wasn't allowed to, so he didn't play. And then his grandfather ended up passing. He never played a game for Illinois. It helped. Adding paying players helped in a way of, like Connor was saying earlier, how it's kind of a full-time job. I played college football for 5 years. I never worked while I was playing because I never had the time. I was, you'd go from fall season to winter lifting into conditioning, into spring ball, into summer lifting, conditioning, and then back into fall. You never had the time. But it's almost gotten to a point where it's like people are using these two great ideologies against teams, and it's causing suffering.
I honestly think that's one of the big reasons why Saban left. I really do.
I agree. I 100% agree that it got way too much about the money and that he wasn't having it anymore.
Yeah.
Isn't that right, Alabama?
Yeah.
I think it just takes away from the culture that coaches build and the dynasties that they've spent years and years building.
You can almost
like
buy a
Saban
dynasty.
has. Yeah. And now it's just like, you go to an Alabama for the culture, before Saban retired, for what he stood for, what his
did he
process
build?
was.
He was a quarterback merchant. Horrible cut. No,
a
I'm
touch
just playing.
push,
I'm just playing.
a touch push merchant.
No, I'm just playing. He was an AJ McCarron merchant. He's nothing without AJ McCarron.
Man.
St. Louis Battlehawks, let's go. I don't know. I think it just takes away from coaches' abilities to build a program.
Yeah. I definitely
what it is. Yeah.
I definitely agree. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you giving me your week. Obviously, it's always fun to talk college football or any sort of football or any sort of sports for that matter. I'm sure that free agency is obviously not over for the NFL. So maybe this time next week we'll have some more information to share on the NFL. Obviously, college football. Still waiting on some more news. Hopefully that we'll get some more news sometime soon. But gentlemen, I appreciate you giving me your time of the week. So you fellas have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Monday.